right. Hey, welcome everybody to our Enlighten AI webinar. Appreciate so much you taking the time to join us, whether you are here live with us now, which is great, or if you're watching the recording afterwards. Either way, thanks so much for setting aside the time to learn about this amazing product. If you are live with us in the chat, feel free to say hi. I see looks like Jill Allen said hi from Illinois. So thank you so much for being here. But whoever's here, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Love to hear where you're from. We're going to do quick introductions on our end here. So I'm going to start off with a quick intro of myself. So hi, everybody. My name is Eric Kurtz. I've been in education for 34 years, doing this a long time. I was a middle school math teacher and then switched into a role as an ed tech coach. And that is what I currently do. I help train schools all over Ohio, all around the country, all around the world on AI and Google tools and accessibility and things like that. I run the website controlaltachieve.com. Please do check that out. That's where you're going to find all of my ed tech resources, loads of things on that site, probably a good 10 years worth of content there. There's webinars, there's an AI tab, there's a newsletter you can sign up for, a lot of stuff there. So do check that out when you get time. I am, though, not the focus of this evening. I have a special guest, Gotham Thopper. Gotham, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Do you want to take just a moment and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Eric. My name is Gotham Thopper. I'm the founder of Enlighten AI, but most importantly, I am a former teacher and school leader. So I started my career 15 years ago or so now. I'm in the classroom in Richmond, California, just north of Oakland, if you're familiar, and loved it. Grading and feedback was a huge part of my practice, but one that really burned me out. We'll probably talk a little bit about my story at some point today. Fast forward, I came back to the same community and founded and led a school as the principal for 6 years. So a lot of time in school buildings, never really expected to be in tech. But here I am trying to solve some of the problems that we faced back when I was a teacher and school leader. So really excited to be with you, Eric. I've been following you for a long time.
Well, hey, no, and I appreciate just mentioned the Control Alt Achieve side. If you go back a couple of years, I think, yeah, probably 2 years, your tool was one of the ones that I highlighted in my cool tools of 2023. So I had come across your tool back in 2023, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, this is different. This does something that I'm not seeing other tools do, and so it absolutely made my list that year, and I've been sharing it ever since. So just so people know, this is gonna be hands-on. We're gonna get in. You're gonna be seeing all the stuff, but we're gonna do just a quick kind of set the stage here. Gotham, is it fair to say this is a tool that focuses heavily on grading and feedback of student writing, benefiting both the teacher and the student? Would that be a fair summary?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, because we're talking about grading and feedback and we're talking about AI, I just want to get it out of the way right up front. This can be a challenge for some folks when you say, oh, wait a second, hold on. Should we have AI grading student work? Should we have AI giving feedback? So we do want to talk about that up front before
Yes.
we dive into this, because obviously you've built a company around this. So I have a feeling I kind of know to a degree where you're coming from on this, but I think it's more nuanced than that. And so I'm going to first of all mention there was recently actually a meta study that was done. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to drop this link into the chat. So anybody that wants to take a look at this, you can pull this up later. This was a meta study that just got published September of 2025. So, just a couple months ago. And by a meta study, what I mean is, it's a study where they look at a large quantity of studies that were done. In this case, 41 studies with a total of 4,813 students. And again, here's the PDF. You can go into the whole thing there. Now, I'm going to oversimplify this, but just the highlights of it was what they found out was really interesting. From all of these studies, two key things. One was, what impact did using AI to provide feedback to students on their grade, on their writing, what impact did that have on learning performance? So how the students' writing improved, their actual learning performance, and how did it impact student perception? What did they feel about that feedback? And again, oversimplifying, but the short answer was there was not a negative connection to that. That there was no statistical difference in the student's perception and their learning performance, whether it was, the AI giving feedback or the teacher giving feedback. Now, be careful, be careful. And they were very clear about this in the article. They're saying those are just two measures. That is not including other things that go into this. We're only talking about, did the student feel it was valuable feedback and did it actually help them? Now, they also find great value in the things that a human brings to this. Great value in the connection and the relationship and the way a teacher can go much deeper into things. In that, having said that, the takeaway from this is it has a place. Now, and if you read the whole article, the whole study there, the meta-analysis, the end is they call for a hybrid approach. They're saying absolutely teachers must still be a piece of this, but we can use, if we do it well, if we do it, and again, I'm gonna let you're gonna talk about why Enlighten AI does it well. Why, because I love your philosophy behind it. If we do it right, if we are thoughtful about it, if we really consider what makes for good guided feedback. Guys, we are not here tonight talking about just taking kids' essays, throwing them into Chat GPT and saying, oh, just grade this for me. That is not what we're talking about here. The teacher is in the loop. The teacher is still a part of this. And that hybrid approach is the idea. Hey, let AI give that quick feedback to the student, which is one of the things in the study they said they really appreciated was quick formative feedback that they could then act upon. But then let the teacher be able to also get support from that, get good information from that, and then be able to provide even better feedback and intervention for those students. Now, with that said, I would encourage you definitely check out the article, or the paper. Do look into that. But Gotham, let's talk about what makes Enlighten AI different. What are you doing to try to address those understandable concerns about using AI to provide feedback and grading?
Yeah, thanks so much, Eric. This is a great question. I'm so glad you grounded in the research. I'll start by telling a really quick story, if you'll indulge me for a second. So when I was teaching, I was so burnt out by the grading, by the feedback, by trying to give a paper every single week, that my mom literally asked me, I'm an educated person. Can I come and help you with this? And I thought about it for a second, and my answer to her was this: it would take me so much longer to train you on all the things you need to know to grade a single AP history essay. And what I'm looking for in my classroom, the kind of feedback I'm trying to leave, to learn how to give good feedback, I can't do it. Like, it would take me longer to teach you how to do this than it would to actually do it myself. That's not to say that it wouldn't be valuable, but the problem is that as the teacher of the classroom, there's a particular vision that I have. There's a particular knowledge of the student. There's a particular context that I'm operating in. And an AI system is not going to have that. And so to your question of what is it about Enlighten AI that is unique? Why do we exist? Why not just toss this work into ChatGPT? It's because the valuable perspective of the teacher needs to be in the model. And so what's unique about Enlighten AI is, as you are grading and giving feedback on the work, the AI is actually learning and adapting to what you're saying, to the scores that you're leaving, to the kind of comments that you're putting to students based on their work. And it's trying to mimic and suggest those types of scores, those types of feedback for the next student. So as you go from the first submission to the second to the third, it's learning and growing and adapting. And I think the thing that we're really excited about, the thing we want to preserve in written feedback, is this idea that the teacher's voice really matters. That even if I did have a teacher's assistant that could learn from me quicker than my mom would, and my mom would probably exercise more executive judgment than I'd prefer. In those scenarios, right, where you've got a teacher's assistant that can learn from you, they're learning from your voice, your context, your expertise. It allows you to go faster. It allows you to be more efficient. It also allows you to spend a lot more of the time thinking about the work doing the intellectual work that is really worthy of the teacher's time, and less of the rote work of just copying and pasting from a feedback key. So we don't want to live in a world where you're copying and pasting from the feedback key, doing everything manually. We also don't want to live in a world where you're just accepting the feedback that comes out of the AI because that's going to be the fastest thing, right? There's this middle ground of, I teach the AI what it needs to know. It learns from that to speed me up, but I still am doing the intellectual work. I am still the final arbiter of what goes back to kids. And there's a whole lot more that we can talk about within that, but that's the general structure.
No, and I love that. And we'll see all of that. Some of the key things that initially excited me so much about the tool is what you've hinted at, that it learns from you. It makes a model of you. So it is learning from you. A lot of times when I do trainings on grading and reporting or grading and feedback, I use the phrase guided grading. I said, that's actually a session I have, the future of feedback, guided grading with AI. It's again, we're not just throwing it to ChatGPT, we are guiding it. The teacher is involved in it. And I know you're probably going to use this phrase at some point, but the idea of it being a TA, a teacher's assistant. When I was in college, I was a TA. I don't know, maybe some of you guys were in the chat. If so, say that you were. But yeah, I was a TA, and I helped, grade papers. I helped create notes. I helped do stuff. But I was an assistant. The buck didn't stop with me. It was still the teacher's job. And that's a phrase I say over and over and over again in my trainings. AI is your TA. AI is not here to do your job. AI is here to help you do your job better. And we've even started to see this show up in things that are not even educational. There's now studies, and we're finding out stuff that when companies have tried to replace people with AI, things get worse. When they try to use AI to supplement and help people, then production goes up and things get better. We can't replace people with AI. It's there to help us. And the same thing applies in an educational sense. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to actually dive in and see this in action. Gotham's going to demonstrate exactly what this tool looks like. While he's doing that, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you guys have questions, put them in there. I'll make sure I pass them on to Gotham here. I may interject every now and then and share something as we go. So Gotham, I'm going to let you, if you want to share your screen, I'm going to remove mine from there, and then we can get yours up there. And we may even disappear. We might go off the screen and just let Gotham's screen fill the whole thing so you guys can actually see what's going on here. So once you get that ready, let me know and we'll get that up.
Yeah. I'll speak for a couple seconds, then I'll I'll share it here so you can keep it sort of in the
worries
in the wings.
And no worries, you're good.
What I'd love to do is just sort of frame the tool as we get started here. So what Enlighten AI does, depending on how much or how little you know about it so far, there's really, in this concept of being a TA for the purposes of grading, feedback, and data-driven instruction, the first question we really asked ourselves is what would you do if you had this tireless TA? And specifically for the purposes of grading, the first obvious use case is, if I had a TA that sat with me after class, after students submitted an exit ticket or an essay, I would not just hand them the stack of papers with a rubric and say, hey, I know you're going to do this really well. I know they would not. I would teach them. I'd go through the task. I'd go through the rubric. I'd grade examples together, and I'd check and coach them up so that they're able to sort of mimic and reflect the scores and standards that I'm leaving. So that's tool number one. We released that, and folks said, this is really accurate. This is really sounding like me. This is what I wish a TA would say to students. And so we were pushed and encouraged by teachers to flip the script and say, what if I could train the TA before class and have that TA just sort of circulate class, and when students finish their work, or when they're struggling to finish their work, they can get feedback and sort of a hint and unlock from that TA that I've teed up to sort of give feedback in the style and context that I'm looking for. So that is what we did. We put that out and we've sort of refined it. You'll see it today. And then we got pushed even further. And the push was, well, if this TA were really, really good, maybe it could actually jumpstart my lesson plan for tomorrow. Maybe it could tell me what is going on in student work, analyze it in a way that I'm not going to have time to on a daily basis, that we do maybe once a quarter. Maybe it could get this assessment loop of data-driven instruction sort of flowing for me. So with that, I'll show you the three tools: the grading assistant, the immediate feedback assistant, and the data-driven resource generation. And
love it.
Eric, I'd love for you to just throw a tomato at me, count me down, make sure that I'm going slow, clear, things are making sense to folks.
All right. Well, no, that sounds wonderful. Let's dive on in and let people see what this does.
Awesome. So here you can see the Enlighten AI screen. And there's several things to know about what you can do in Enlighten and sort of what we have here. So I've actually integrated with Google Classroom directly. This is one of the most common use cases that we have in Enlighten. And so if you look into my classwork in Humanities 9, period 2, for example, there's an assignment, there's students, there's all of the usual good stuff in Google Classroom. In Enlighten, I can see those same classes, those same sections. If I click into one of these classes and look at the student tab, I'll actually see the sample students sitting in my class. And if they turn in work as a Google Classroom assignment, that assignment can get synced over with the submissions here in Enlighten, so that I can even post the scores, the feedback directly smack dab back onto the student Google Doc if I want to. So I'll show you really quickly what that looks like. So if you click New Assignment, and I'm going to want to import and grade work, and I'm going to go to my Google Classroom, and I'm going to click Continue. Now I'm going to be served with a modal that basically asks me, all right, for which classes and which assignments. So I'm going to go to Humanities 9. I'm going to find this webinar demo assignment, and Enlighten checks to see if there is work ready to grade. It doesn't have to be for you to bring it in. Maybe you're waiting for submissions, but there is work ready to grade. And if I click Sync Assignments, I can add to my shopping cart, so to speak. It's actually going to prompt me and say, do you want to start grading this only one assignment that I brought in? I can bring in multiple. I can bring in 4 or 5 assignments at once. Only those assignments that are relevant for me that I actually am going to be using in Enlighten. But that is a really easy way, and I'll just show you quickly. There's a couple of turned in submissions. Now I can go into actually grading the assignment. So if you're a Google Classroom user, it's one of our most common use cases. We also have a ton of folks who like to grade from other different spots. So we won't be able to go through all of them, but just to show you that New Assignments button, which is actually new since you probably last saw it, Eric, because this only got released this morning.
It is new, yes.
Yes. You might not have even known that you can import work from all of these different places. So if you've got Illuminate, which is an assessment provider, if you're a Canvas user, if you have docs, copy and paste, good old copy and paste, a Google form, there's sort of walkthroughs on how you can get any of that work into the system ready for you to grade. So what I'd actually love to show is how you would go in and grade an assignment that was given maybe as a Google form or via Illuminate. So I'm going to click New Assignment, and I'm going to import and grade some work. And Illuminate actually gives you a spreadsheet or CSV. So that's why I wanted to use this format, because formative is another one where you can get work out of the system in the same format. So I'm going to click on Illuminate and click Continue. I'm just going to upload the file that Illuminate gives me. So there's a file of 147 or so student submissions, and I'm going to click Next. Now, I'm not in my partner school account, so I'm not going to match up with a student roster here. I'm just grading this as a one-off, and we'll call this the EC demo assignment. I could bring in multiple assignments at once. There's just some sort of extra filler columns here, but I can bring in multiple questions from a Google form with multiple constructed responses. For now, I'm just going to bring in the one. I'm going to click. I'm going to say I want to grade. Now, no matter where you're bringing the work in from, right? It could be Google Classroom, Canvas, Illuminate, Google Forms, you name it. You could probably find a way to get it into Enlighten. From here, we always land at the same place, which is I'm sitting across from my teacher's assistant, setting up to grade after class. So what would I do with that teacher's assistant? Well, first thing is we've got to have the stack of papers in front of us. So I've got 147 anonymized pieces of student work here. So we're going to confirm those submissions and move forward. Now, the next thing that I'm going to supply my teacher's assistant is the rubric. Now, there's a catch to this where if the TA has graded one class, once I've trained them up, I can actually basically tell them to go back and use the same training. So if I grade period 1, I don't need to do all this again. I don't need to hand them the rubric, teach them, how to grade, how to give feedback. I can just reuse an AI training, and it has all my past assignments ready. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So once I do this once, I'm going to be in good shape. I'm going to use the New York State constructed response rubric. It's a really simple one. In the rubrics library, we have tons of rubrics that you can use for pretty much every state. You can share rubrics to our communal library. You can share them direct to another teacher. Sometimes I joke that we're 50 or 60% a rubrics company, because you can create them any which way. You can generate them, but we won't spend all our time on rubrics. We want to get to the meat of the matter, which is grading and feedback. So here I have given my TA the stack of papers. I've given them the rubric that they need in order to do the scoring, but they need to know what the task was. They need to know which students we're grading. They've got a lot of context that they need. This is a really key point. If you stuff work into ChatGPT with a rubric, or if you stuff work into any platform with just a rubric, it'll give you something that looks reasonable on first pass. Our research indicates that if you don't have the prompt, the reading, if you haven't supplied it with the stuff that a human needs, it's not going to be able to do a very good job, however reasonable and magical it may seem. So I'm going to give this TA that context. I'm going to provide it with the grade level. I'm going to tell it students were writing just a couple of paragraphs. And I have a scoring guide here with the task. So this was a task in New York where students were asked to basically respond to a reading. Very common task. And I'm actually going to supply the TA with the prompt to basically talk about the symbolism in this story on the central idea, and the text, which I'm going to paste in here, but I could have uploaded as a PDF. I can also upload images if you're a history guy like me. I was a history teacher. Those DBQs, you can put in the political cartoons. But now my TA has the context. And unlike a human TA, it's not going to take it a long time to read it. Once I go to the next step, that TA now has the context. It's read the task. It's going to reference it when it's grading students. And the final piece here is if I have any specific instructions, any focal points, any ways I want to give the feedback, I can give that to my teacher's assistant as well. So I could supply it with, for example, the style. Maybe I just want to note that was my style when I was a teacher. Glows and grows, very popular. Maybe strand by strand, it's giving feedback on the rubric. All of those are possible. I can also specify the length. I can give it an exemplar that it refers to know my standard of excellence. And maybe sneakily, most important, we've seen teachers just use these specific grading and feedback instructions to huge effect. We see everything from focus intently on prepositions. I worked on prepositions with students today. I absolutely want to know that they're getting their prepositions right. We've even seen teachers say, if the student misses on a preposition, I want you to name it by the line, and I want you to give an example of what a correct preposition is. So there's even a teaching point in there. You know your students, and this is the way that you infuse the context that the TA needs in order to reflect that same knowledge. Now, when we go to the next step, I'm going to leave this blank for the moment. This is not the only way to train your AI, but it's one way. So I'm going to actually leave it blank and just show you, you don't need to tell it, you can show it as well. I'm going to say next step, and I'm just going to start grading. Okay? So I haven't given the TA a ton, right? It's giving me some rubric-based feedback here. That's its default. And I'm noticing immediately, like, yikes, this is kind of long. Maybe I'm going to edit the AI instructions, switch to glows and grows here, save that, and I'm just going to refresh. Oop, sorry.
No worries at all.
As part of the experience, I guess. So now I've got glows and grows, and now I'm calibrating and working with my TA to teach it what it is that I'm looking for. So it's given me some glows, it's given me some grows, and my job here is now to be the teacher who shows the TA what to learn from. So I can't talk to it directly, but I can show it what I'm looking for by changing the scores, changing the feedback. So this student, for example, actually maybe earned a 4. So what I want to do is actually say, oh, this is a 4, and I'm going to regenerate that feedback. And now the TA has learned, oh, it's a 4. We're going to explain this as if it's a 4. So it's actually regenerated this feedback in a way that does give improvements, but it's much more praise heavy. And when I add comments or change comments, the TA is going to learn from that. So I'm going to say, for example, we're going to pretend that students are supposed to list their word count. And this student has not, none of these students have, just as an example of how the TA learns. So I'm going to say, PS, remember to include your word count. And I'm going to save and continue. Now, if I were doing this for real, I'd be editing this text. I might be giving quotes from student work. I'd be doing a lot just to make it exactly what I'm looking for. This is sort of the short, fast feedback. Wasn't my style as a teacher, but it's many teachers' style, and there's a place for this. So I'm going to save and continue. And now the TA is starting to train up. It's learning, okay, we do glows and grows. It's got the approximate length, right? It saw the first student was a perfect 4. So it's learned that that actually met the expectations at a level 4. And now it's moved on to the second student, and it's given the student a 2. Now here, I happen to know that this was actually graded a 1 by the actual human. The feedback may still be right, but it's one of those edge cases. Then I'm going to also say, well, this student didn't put their word count, so let's make sure that AI knows that. Remember word count. Now I've got the exclamation point, like I've seen this a couple times. So we save and continue, and notice here at the bottom, the AI is getting trained up. First 20%, then 40%. It will take it 5 submissions before it's fully calibrated with us. But once it gets calibrated, we'll start to see it reflecting our voice more and more. So student 100, this is actually exactly the score that was given for real. These are glows and grows that look very similar to the kind that I've been leaving. So I've been training my TA up. Still hasn't quite learned to list our word count, but it takes a few examples typically, especially with slightly longer text. 101, this was also a 3. I'm going to include your word count. I have found that when I'm demoing, it tends to take a little longer to train. Seems to know.
Oh, but there it is. There it is.
And I love to pause here and say, like, I'm just doing like a rinky-dink. Remember to include your word count. It's repetitive. It's, it's not the kind of thing that's the substantive comments that you'd be changing. But that's the point, actually, in a weird way, is whatever you're changing, whatever you're leaving here, I haven't told the TA that this is an expectation. It's learned this expectation by way of example. So if I'm quoting from student work, if I'm really harping on a specific point around students' reasoning and the way they connect their reasoning to the claim, it's going to learn that expectation, that context, in the context of my rubric, in order to help me go a little faster, go a little more efficiently, but still stay in the driver's seat. I'm going to change this over to a 3. I'm going to click save and continue. And now, we're at the point where the TA is probably, starting to align very closely with what I've been saying to students. It maybe hasn't seen a perfect range of highs and lows. In fact, I'd love to find, just one kind of lower response and just make sure that it has sort of seen a little bit of a range. So I'm going to find one really quick. You want your TA to sort of see different examples. And so this one's a little bit of a lower response. I scored it exactly right. This is a 1. But let's pretend now. So I've seen, 5, 6 examples. TA is starting to hit the mark. If this TA worked for me in my classroom, I would send them off to go bring the stack back to me ready to return. Usually this takes 24, maybe 72 hours if you actually have the luxury of like a high quality TA. But with AI, we can do this a lot faster. So when I say AI grade the remaining, now the TA is tirelessly taking my examples. It's grading the rest of the stack. And it's going to bring this back to me not in 24 to 72 hours, but I would bet within 24 to 72 seconds for my review. And in a second here, I'm going to try to do a little live demo of the accuracy or alignment. I didn't calibrate this perfectly because I wasn't changing the comments and rationale. But I'm wondering, Eric, if you and I graded this work together, like you graded it, I graded it, what percentage of our scores on this 5-point rubric scale do you think would fall within 1 point of each other, let's say?
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I'm that good of an essay grader. But if I just had to guess, I'd say, we'd be within 25% of each other. As far as how many times we agree.
25% perfect match. How many times, let's give ourselves a little bit of grace, because let's say, what percentage of the time you think we'd be within one score? So like you give the student a 3, I give them a 4. How often do you think that might happen?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely going to happen without a doubt. How often, though, does that happen between me and you if we're grading? I don't know. I mean, again, I would say we would probably be off of each other. I think that's what I was thinking is like that 25%. Like,
Yeah,
25% of the time we're not going to, 75% of the time we probably agree, 25% we might not. But again, I'm giving myself a lot more credit
yeah.
here.
And
Let's
agree is
pretend
like
I've
we're
been in the
within.
classroom a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and agree is like we're within 1 point,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
pretty much what
Okay.
you're hoping to get. So
Okay.
yeah, 75% within 1 point. That's actually pretty, maybe the research is back there. You've probably seen it at some point. Maybe it's coming back to you now. That's around, 80, 90% is pretty good. 90% in like research settings. So look, my TA is great at everything, right? In alignment with the feedback and scores and calibration that I did. Now, it's not my job to just send this back to students. It's my job to approve these submissions, do the final check. I can still edit this as much as I want. I can still change the scores. All of this keeps the teacher in the driver's seat, keeps the voice infused in everything that's going back to the student, and make sure the teacher's at the beginning, at the end, the most important part of the task. It's the middle where some of the rote work gets automated, but not without the teacher's voice infused. Now, the reason why I asked you that, Eric, was because I actually want to go over. I'm going to attempt to do something that you shouldn't do during live demos. So uh, let's just make sure that we're clear on that. I'm actually going to take this data that I've never seen before. So I just exported it as a CSV. I'm going to come off of share, and I want to try to perform what I hope will be a little bit of a magic trick. So I'm going to share my screen, but share a new screen.
All right. That's fine.
And I'm going to break a bunch of rules here. So I'm going to show a spreadsheet. Never supposed to do that during a webinar, but I want to do a live demo here. I haven't seen this data. I just generated it. You just saw me open up a CSV. So this file is basically to calculate the accuracy. So you said 75% within 1 point would be good, right? If you and I are doing it as human beings, it's pretty close to the research. 80, 90% is very good. So I'm going to actually put in the data that we just did. This was a test earlier today. So I'm just going to delete it so you can see that it's deleted. And I'm going to paste in the new work. I'm going to go and test my Excel skills and create an ID column here. And I wonder if folks want to put their guess as to what percentage Enlighten is going to match the scores that were actually given by the real grader of this.
Actual scores that were really given, and now we're seeing how well Enlighten AI has come to that. Okay.
Yes. So these were the scores given by the actual school. Actually, the administrator actually graded these.
Right. Yeah.
And what we want to see is what did Enlighten give? So if folks want to put for fun their best guesstimate of what the percentage will be, Eric's was 75%. Let's see.
Oh, and I love a good VLOOKUP. I tell you, there's nothing. Well, actually, I'm doing more cross lookups nowadays, but still pretty good.
I don't know if you spotted that, Eric. This is, and I didn't, I will say it wasn't 100% when I tried this earlier. It was 98, 99, but we got a 100% within 1 point match.
Oh my gosh, within 1 point, 100% of them. Al had mentioned maybe about an 89, but that's amazing.
So this is the distribution of the error. So about 60% of the time, it's a perfect match. It's the exact same score. And then it's plus or minus 1 the rest of the time. And I'll say I didn't calibrate this as well as I could have. So I was doing it quick. I didn't even read the feedback really closely. So I'll show you in our best trial, this is what we produced. This is the best we've ever done. Was a 100% match, but a 70% exact match rate. So it can be even higher. But to do this in such a short period of time sort of illustrates kind of the point that we're getting at, that, this calibration stuff really works.
No,
I'm curious. You've never seen that before. I'm curious.
I have not, but I loved it. Hey, listen, I'm a big spreadsheet guy. My life runs on spreadsheets. So, I mean, you had me at VLOOKUP, but when the actual data came in, I'm very impressed. That's fantastic. I love how, and I will say this, I know this, other people don't, and you might not toot your horn enough about this, but you guys don't just develop products, you rigorously test them. You do research. You literally do research where you are really saying, does this actually work? And and you find that it does. And if it doesn't, then you make changes and you figure out why and all that stuff. I'm always impressed by how much research you guys do on your own product. So that's
Yeah,
great.
I appreciate that. Yeah, this is one of several tasks, and we've done it. We do it with real school data. So that was
Mhm.
it was a graded assessment that a school turned over to us in partnership to say, hey, we want to know how accurate Enlighten is. It was one of the conditions before they actually purchased. It's like, can we do
Yeah,
this research
yeah,
together? We said,
right.
not only can we would love to. And now we've done it for probably 4 or 5 schools. We've done it on the California rubric with a district down in Southern Cal or near Fresno. This was the New York rubric. We've done it on the Achievement First rubric. That's a curriculum. There's a few others that we've done this with, and we've seen similar results. Every rubric, every calibration is a little bit different, but generally the research is also showing that using examples, using anchor papers intelligently, which is not easy to do, does in fact produce better results. Cool thing is that this is only one of the treats. So I'd love to show a couple more things.
Absolutely. Yes.
Uh, and so, yeah, let's get back to this TA analogy. So the TAs brought this back to me. And now, if you can see my screen here, you can see I've got my points earned for every student. This was brought to me in a spreadsheet. If this were a Google Doc, I'd be able to just post scores once I've finalized everything back to student papers, right in their Google Doc. I can post it their stream. I can email it to them. If it comes from a spreadsheet, there's no paper to put it back on. So what we can do, and I'll show you just a sample, is we can actually produce a handout for students that we could use the next day. So here's the total points earned, the submission from the student, the feedback that we left to them. I can go and send this to the printer in one go. So I can say send in PDF file. I do want the student work and feedback in the handouts. And it's going to give me just one of these to just run straight to the printer. Now, remember I told you if this TA were really good and they've won my confidence, the next thing I'd want them to do is to really roll up the insights for me. So when you go to this Trends and Insights tab, sorry, let me refresh here real quick. I think I just clicked out. When you go to this Trends and Insight tab, the period of time where the TA is sort of seeing your feedback, seeing what you're saving, it's also tagging a strength and a growth area for every individual student, all 147 that are in this file. And that allows me to sort of refresh on, all right, what are the things I probably want to be thinking about before I go into class tomorrow? And I'm not going to remember every one of these perfectly, but maybe I print this, maybe I highlight a few, maybe I remember a few to say, during class, I want to make sure that I praise, student number 6 on clear explanation. I want to talk to them about organizing their writing into multiple paragraphs. And here on the left, I have the trends for the whole class. So strengths, growth areas, and recommendations. These are all generated off of the kind of context, the feedback that I've left. And that's all well and good. I used to love getting insights like this when I was a teacher, but then the real meat of it is like, how do you take all that and translate it into something you actually do in class, right? That's a very difficult practice. It's time consuming, it's time intensive. Writing is particularly hard to do. And so we've been encouraged to sort of see how do you help the teacher take the next steps? And so now I'm going to go ahead and generate a data-driven resource. You click the magic button, the yellow button, it says data-driven resources. Now my AI is morphing into a data-driven planning assistant. So it's saying, here's what's going on. Here's a recommended reteaching objective. Here's a vision for a resource. And here is my best stab at the actual resource. Okay. Now it's pulled out a insight that maybe I disagree with. And I actually do disagree. Or maybe I didn't love teaching paragraph organization. I know it's super important, but I'm actually going to toss all of this out. I'm going to say, hey, actually, I think students need to work on transition words. They struggled with this. Build me that in the context of this task. So it's got my rubric, it's got the task. And now what I'm basically saying is like, hey, I actually saw a different resource. And now it's drafting the asking me if I want it. There we go. So maybe a little bit too confirmatory in this instance, must know that I'm demoing. But now I have a sample piece of work, and I can just take this, add it to my document, and I've got instructions, I've got a transition. This is perfect, actually. This is what I was envisioning, is I've got a sample piece of student work. I've got sort of a word bank. If this is early in the school year, if this is October, this may be the place that we're working. And what I might say is actually, you know what, and this is only a few words. Let's extend this. So I'm going to highlight the text. I'm going to go to the AI chat and say, I need this to be 3 paragraphs. Keep the blanks for transition words in all 3 paragraphs. I want this activity to actually take a little longer. I want a little bit more diversity. And it's produced now something that sort of looks just like that. And actually, I like this better because it's got some at the beginning. But now I've got blanks. And I can, of course, wordsmith this. It's not going to take the time down to 0. But now I've got 3 little sections. I can extend this. I can actually edit this with AI assistance. And in the last 3 to 5 minutes, we've gone from the insight that I really wanted to focus on, even if the AI's was different, to a practice activity of the length that I want. And I have more than 5. I can spend 15 minutes and get this to be quite good and responsive to the data. So yeah, I'm not sure if we've seen all of the pieces of this puzzle too, but I'm eager to pause for a second there, Eric, and see what you're thinking and what you want to call out to folks, if anything.
No, I absolutely love it, and that is so important. Talking about what I get excited about when it comes to AI, is when AI can do things. When we can do things we would not be able to do otherwise as easily. We know these are valuable things. We know that processing large amounts of data, looking for trends, identifying where the strengths and the weaknesses are, and then crafting follow-up learning activities that address those. We know
Yes.
that is valuable. But then we go, but I just can't. I don't have the time. It's just not realistic. It is, it's best practice, but it's not practical,
Yeah.
And it's like, this does this. This makes best practices practical, is what it does. It makes us be able to take things we know work and actually do it so that the teacher can get that support. I love it. It really is. Yeah, I get why you're calling it the TA. It is a very well-informed, guided TA that is doing amazing things for the teacher. And I know we still have one more piece that we haven't even seen. It still gets even better. But if we stop there, that is already incredibly powerful for teachers. And then at the end, we will talk about pricing and all these kind of things. I will say you guys have always had a robust free version that people can use as well. Anybody that knows me knows that I only promote things that do that do have such a thing. But at the same time, I want you guys to be successful as a company and keep growing. But we'll get into all of that. I know sometimes that question does come up like that. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
Let's show you one more thing, and then I'll actually show you. I want it to be entertaining for you too, Eric. So I'm gonna show you one thing that I think you may not have seen just yet.
All right.
So this is the thing that folks, we thought that was sort of the whole game. And when folks saw the accuracy, the consistency, the alignment with themselves as teachers and as school leaders, said, well, what if we could flip the script, have that TA trained in advance? So now I'm going to go back to this new assignment button in Enlighten. I'm going to say I'm going to assign work on Enlighten AI. And I'm going to take this same task that I just showed you. We graded more traditionally, sort of as an assessment. And what if I wanted to make this a more formative exercise for students? If that's the case, then the thing that I want to do is basically tee up my teacher's assistant in advance of class. So students can get feedback during class, sort of a lower stakes practice. So we'll call this ECIMM demo. So this is the immediate feedback demo. Students are still writing a few paragraphs, still 8th grade, providing that TA the context, not after class, but before. And actually, I'll change it up a little bit. I actually want to use a simpler task that's a little more fun for me, maybe more controversial, just to keep it spicy at the end. I'm going to use the CER rubric because that was my favorite one. And I'm actually going to say, let's have students write a paragraph, because this is much more the stuff that I didn't get to grade was the paragraph, the exit ticket at the end of class. I want to say, I never got to teach elementary. I don't know a lot about it, but I know enough. And let's call this fourth grade, and we'll say, who's better, Batman or Superman? Why? I've had somebody say Beyonce or Taylor Swift. I don't want to get that spicy, but Batman and Superman feels good. And I'm going to say next step. I'm going to stick with glows, maybe just a few sentences, glows and grows. I really want the TA to always cite student words, quote their work in both glows and grows. You know, this is formative. Let's call it use bullet points. Always 2-ish glows and 1-ish grow. I say ish because every student's work is different. If I had it, I could actually train the AI up in advance. I could plug in samples of student work and actually grade it in advance of class to calibrate the AI. But even absent that, I'm able to sort of give the AI some instructions. I can preview it and say, Batman was better because he's human, IDK. Now that's usually the end of the process for the student. But if we turn immediate feedback on as a teacher, students don't get the choice, but as a teacher, we say, you're gonna get immediate feedback. Now, instead of this being the end of the process, it's the beginning. And the student's gonna get this feedback. We've got glows, we've got grows. Seems like it's citing from the student work. There's not a lot to cite from on the grows, so I like that it's actually not done that there. But this is actually pretty close to what I was looking for. I could go back to the instructions. I could add some samples maybe from previous years. But when I go to that next step, and I use this for my classroom, I can say the AI should give on-demand feedback to students. And they should have as many revision opportunities as allowed. We'll put in 4. And I'm going to give this to Humanities 9, period 2. That's my Google Classroom class. I'm going to enable pasting, but you can disable it for students. And that will mean that they can't actually push the paste button to just dissuade pulling in stuff they maybe shouldn't pull in for their writing assignment if it's that kind of closed book writing assignment. I'm going to publish the assignment. And the beautiful thing is I can share this with another teacher. When I've set the TA up, I can sort of align across our departments. And of course, I can share a link with students. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And I'm going to go over and share my student view now. So now I am Bella Brave, student in this fictional classroom. And I'm going to put in the link. I'm going to sign in as Bella. And here's the interface. If there were sources or readings, I could put those here. But we'll put in that same task and say Batman was better because he was human. IDK the rest. I got a ton of these. And it's not like the student, like reflecting anything other than like they're struggling to formulate the ideas. And in our early research, what we've seen is the biggest growth from this form of like low stakes practice with immediate feedback is an idea development. The students who have a lot to say, but for some reason it's not coming out on the page, those students thrive with this. So when I submit for feedback now, that's not the end of the process. Class, there's still some class time left. These are the kids who might like start with this. They don't really know where to go. They put their pencil down and you get this. That's not the end of the process now. So it's asking me, all right, let's add more evidence. For example, you could share something that Batman does to show why being human makes him better. Batman being human makes him better because he has to struggle. Superman, it's just easy. I'm trying to do my best 4th grade work here. Going to submit for feedback again. And one of the things I wanted to show here is the AI is looking at the previous drafts. It said, I noticed you added more explanation this time. You said Batman has to struggle because he's human. And this is a way for the students to really get sort of hooked on the idea of like, oh, if I make the change, then I'm going to see that reflected. And we've just seen this be hugely motivating to students. There's also whether we like it or not, there's an extrinsic motivating factor to scores. And so putting these scores here has been quite helpful. Students get motivated to sort of boost their score from an early draft. So it turns a one-shot process into 3 rounds of feedback potentially. You do that maybe once, twice a week. Students are getting hundreds of more at-bats implementing feedback over the course of the year. So that when they submit this as an exit ticket with no feedback to you, when they're using your time to review, grade with the AI assistant, that time is really well spent, and you know you're getting sort of an honest assessment, probably a much more supported assessment of where they're at. One thing I'll just pop in really quick, Eric, since I think we have just a smidge of time, is some admin features. And so some of our school partners basically asked us, like, what if we could have a content lead, a department chair, our AP of curriculum? What if they could actually train the AI? Now, when we give an interim exam or we give an assessment across the campus, when we did that in my school, we shut down PD, everybody grades, everybody goes into their different rooms, and then you get data that doesn't, like you said, 75% of the scores are kind of in the range, but you don't really know how to make sense of it. So what we were asked for was, like, what if we could do this centrally, and then that takes some of the lift off of teachers, that keeps everybody aligned, teachers are still in the driver's seat. And so we built that. So if you're in the admin console, what you can do is you can actually create those assignments centrally, and you can share them out. And so I'll show you just our testing site, because I don't want to use any real school data. This is all fictional. But these are assignments that I built as an administrator. You share those out. Teachers can assign them in their classes. And then what you get at the end is a roll-up of all of the analytics. So you get the scores average. You get a breakdown of the distribution. You get some fluency metrics on student writing. And of course, sort of all of the raw data that you need. And then you can filter this based on, if you're a clever school, you can filter by student demographics, by teacher or classroom, by courses, by grade levels. And for any of those cross sections, you can go and generate those trends and insights that folks have found just so valuable, to be able to say, all right, for my English learner population, what are the trends? For my general ed population, what are the trends? For my students who have IEPs, what are the trends? And this can be really valuable to look, across sort of larger cross sections of your organization. So with that, I'm excited to engage with folks. We're still building, we're still iterating. There's lots of exciting stuff coming ahead. From tomorrow to Tuesday, we've got a smaller release. There will be more coming soon. But yeah, that's the general picture. A lot of that may be new for even you, Eric, and excited to share it with you.
Well, we'll do a few things now as we get closer to the end. I'm going to say real quick, this is a call for any questions, any comments, drop them in the chat. We're going to do a little bit of chat here and a couple little things we're going to start to wrap up. But if you guys have questions, now's the time to put them in. I did see one question that we will address here in just a moment. I'll queue it up for you just so you can see it. A question about using this for progress report comments and report card comments. But while you're thinking about that, why people are starting to throw in some things, I'm going to show my hand and say, my favorite thing you shared all night here, and listen, it's all really good, was the immediate feedback for students. Here's the thing. Listen, I absolutely love how AI can support teachers. Do not get me wrong. That is so important. It's probably the first thing we always show teachers. It's the thing that gets them on board, but it can't stop there. That cannot be the goal of AI. It's critical that, yes, it supports teachers, it informs them, it helps make their job easier, it lets them do what they do best. We can talk about that all day, but it can't stop there.
Yeah.
Why are we in school? Why do we do what we do? For the kids. Ultimately, it's about affecting and impacting our students. Now, we're impacting them by giving them really good feedback through all that. But what I absolutely love is that now, what you described, a student can now go on and do a writing assignment where the writing assignment isn't the end. It is the means to the end. It is the learning activity. They are getting personalized learning. They're getting individualized, immediate, personalized learning that is guided and reflective of the work they're doing so that they can, right now, at this moment, improve their writing. And it's low risk. It can be kind of embarrassing to get a paper back from a teacher with all these marks. It's just an AI. It's just an AI that's giving you this feedback. No harm. It's a safe environment. I love that. Any tool that empowers students, that provides that personalized learning, that's where we've got to get to. And I'm so thrilled to see that I always loved the product when it was supporting teachers. I love it even more that it is empowering students with this sort of immediate feedback for them. So I'm excited about that. Go ahead and speak to, though, if you want. We had the question about, have you seen folks using this for stuff like progress report comments or report card comments?
Yes, we've seen some schools actually build some systems around just sending home those feedback handouts. And so we definitely see that for progress reports, for report card comments, and then also just some systems around it where some teachers are now handing an exit ticket back each week, and it's a great way to engage. Parents really light touch too, and so yes, absolutely, we see that all the time. You could even, if you wanted to. You could even use the system if you got creative with how you sort of manage an import of a spreadsheet. You could actually use it to help you draft the comments. And if anybody in there wants to workshop that with me, I'm happy to show you around. It's not what it's built to do specifically, but you could do it for sure.
Well, I'll definitely say, yeah, that's one thing. You guys are agile and you're open-minded to things. I know I've approached you with suggestions before. They've all been shot down, but you've listened to often.
They're not shot down. We're still working on them. Still working on them.
Rhonda had a question about incorporating IEPs when grading. Have you seen people provide additional context like that?
Yeah, this is a great question. We have operated pretty conservatively in this regard. And so the blunt answer is no, it doesn't. And the longer answer is probably not yet. And we want to be really thoughtful about those accommodations, because if you pass an AI context about a student's IEP in the wrong way, right, which is easy to do, you can actually bias the expectation down in a way that may be unproductive. So we've just been very careful about it. We're experimenting a little bit with specific accommodations, specific sort of like tailoring to student feedback styles, translation, things like that. But we have not yet gone the distance of saying, like, you could plug in specific facets of the student's IEP. That said, what we usually see teachers do is, make sure to go specifically to those students that have accommodations and make those adjustments to the feedback if necessary. And then for students with modifications, those are often so specific that it's best hand graded. So we're very careful in that regard. That's why we were late to the game on immediate feedback in the first place. We were like, teachers got to be in the loop. But at some point, I think we will look into sort of student differentiation at that level. Just something we want to be really careful with.
Excellent.
But it's a great question and a good push for us to think about.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you guys taking it seriously, that you see the value in it, but you want to do it right. And that's what's so important. Not a question, but a comment from Marilyn. She thinks it's cool, blowing her mind. So that's great.
Well, I'm really glad.
Well, as we wrap up, I know people want to know a little bit about pricing. So how does that work? And also, what's the next step? How do they get in touch with you? What do they do next to move forward?
Yeah, this is a great question. We will always have a free plan for teachers. There will be some limitations in terms of, especially some of the newer features that'll come out, in the next, call it 3 months. Some of those will be more limited in terms of how often you can use it or things of that sort. But we, like you said, we want to have a robust free plan always. So right now it's completely free and it's the perfect time to pilot. And then for schools, if you want access to, for example, Clever integration, or you want to be able to sort of distribute assignments centrally and have the data that I showed earlier, that's what we charge for. And then we do a per student license. So we've, got schools that have done it with as small as like a couple hundred students, all the way up to, multi-thousand student, districts. And so welcome all of the above, and probably get a pretty personal touch from me and or Mike, who like to sort of stay very in the weeds. And yeah, the way that folks can get in touch, I'm not sure how to send it to you via StreamYard, Eric, but I have a form that folks can actually fill out if they wanted to.
Well,
Um,
sure. What I'll do is this: those who
yeah,
have registered for this, I will include that form in the email I send out afterwards. And then if it's okay, when I do end up posting this, then officially, if it's something that can be public, I can put it in the description of the video as well. And I'll do a
yeah,
blog
perfect.
post. I'll do a blog post as well that goes with it. So, Gotham, if you send that to me, I will pass it on to everybody who registered, and I'll include it in future sharings of this resource.
Excellent. Yes, as usual, you've got a better idea for it. That's why we're buddies. I will say to everyone, you can look at my first name on the screen, and if you want to email me, if you want to just talk about the space, like one of my favorite parts of my job is talking to teachers, tech coaches, former as a former principal, I love talking to principals about this because I know it's a speck in the galaxy of things that you're thinking about. So you can email me at gotham@enlightenme.ai, and you will get a reply. You'll probably get, yeah, I'd love to chat with you, have a virtual coffee or something just to hear from you.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, as we get ready to wrap up, I did see Rhonda did ask one last question. So the last one we'll take, we want to be respectful of people's times. She said, if a student does revise a submission, should that be added as a separate assignment on Google Classroom? I think if I'm hearing you right, that's more like the idea that in Google Classroom, they are, going in and revising their work
Yeah.
afterwards. Does that get then, resynced, or what happens in a case like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The best way to do that is, yes, to create a new assignment, a revision version of the assignment, have the students submit the revised draft, and then I showed you that you can reuse the training from the first
Yeah,
assignment. So you've taught the AI everything. You just let it basically look at the revisions on that
excellent.
second go around. It's a great question.
Well, folks, as we wrap up here, again, I want to say thank you so much to Gotham for taking the time to be here and for the amazing product that he has developed over time, continually getting better. I want to thank everybody again for either joining us live or watching this recording. Ultimately, the time you're spending here is going to impact your students, and we appreciate you doing that. So, thanks again. Looking forward to all that is to come. And everybody have a fantastic rest of your evening or day, wherever you're at. Thanks so much,
Thanks,
everybody.
y'all. And thanks for hosting, Eric.
You bet.